We welcome you to Conversations today with coffee. And you're welcome to get some. Sophia's found it. And this day is the first day of fall of 2022. And it's going to happen officially tonight at 9:03. And Charles Penzone is here to celebrate fall.
Yes,
Do you like the season of fall?
It's my favorite season.
His favorite season. What a coincidence, because I saw Inga go, oh no, she doesn't want to give up the summer. I'm Ellen O'Shaughnessy. I coordinate this program of Conversations and Coffee. And we are delighted to have with us Charles Penzone, globally celebrated as a hairstylist and a visionary who revolutionized the salon and spa industry. He's chairman and founder of the Charles Penzone Incorporated, an Ohio-based group of world-class salons and spas with 6 locations that serve more than, 300,000 guests a year?
Yeah.
Wow. In 1969, Charles opened his first salon in Columbus, Ohio, with a $500 loan. Now, consistently is proving himself truly as a trailblazer. In 2017, Charles's wife, Debbie Penzone, Debbie, do stand up here. Wonderful. You took over as president and CEO in 2017. And so Charles then has spent his days in the salons interacting with his loyal guests. And I saw, because I was there, I was one of these loyal guests, and that's how I got to meet Mr. Penzone. When the meeting and greeting of his guests came to a standstill with the pandemic of COVID, Charles decided to stay busy. He picked up a paintbrush, and the rest is history. Isn't that gorgeous? Charles enjoys working on abstract paintings, especially large geometric motifs in bright, bold acrylics. We are surrounded by them. His largest painting to date is a 20-foot by 2-foot painting.
4 foot. 20 by 4.
By 4 foot. Ah, hey, Debbie, when you gave that to me. That's a difference when you're working, huh?
Yeah.
Ah, wonderful. So, Charles says, you don't need any real background to start a hobby, he says, or learn something new. It's just simply a blank canvas, and it just speaks back to you that it has infinite possibilities.
Hey, thank you.
Charles took art classes online and learned new painting techniques through Udemy.
Well, it's one of them,
Yeah. And describing that to me, and we can talk about it. It's a platform with thousands of art courses. You know, what do you want to make a remark about?
I don't know if it's 1,000 of art courses alone, but they teach everything under the sun. Computers, you could probably go on there to learn how to do brain surgery. I mean, they just have a plethora of different types of courses to take. And I stumbled upon it by accident.
Oh, wonderful. While you were looking to be busy.
Well,
Yeah.
stay busy.
Well, that's a great art. Deborah remarked that the art studio that her husband created was the silver lining during the pandemic. So Charles has been supporting the local Columbus art community for the past 52 years. So he's been surrounded and loving art and somehow, interiorized it all? Wonderful. So now you have local artists displayed in your salons and spas everywhere, huh?
We do.
Wonderful. Well, Charles, we thank you for holding up the beauty of the work of artists and coming to discover your artistic talent. So how is it that you came to be here?
How I came to be here was,
This one must be better.
I happened to be walking in one of my locations one day, and Ellen happened to be there. And I stumbled across I stumbled across her, and she let me know that she had sent me a couple of emails that I had not returned or responded to, and she asked me to do one of these, and I didn't want to do it, but she told me she would never visit one of my locations again and spend a penny if I didn't. So that's why I'm here today.
Oh.
She's been a client about 35 or 40 years.
Yes.
And,
Oh, yeah.
The least you can do for someone that loyal to you is to reciprocate somehow. So
Well,
that's
thank you for the
primary
reciprocation.
reason. Yeah, that's the primary reason I'm here. But
Oh, we're so
it's
glad to have
it's
you
always
here.
good to meet new people and make new friends. So
yes.
that's why I'm here. I began painting when the quarantine began, about 2 years ago. I've been collecting art for 57 years now, and primarily 90% of the collection is Central Ohio artists. And I've been very blessed to have a lot of locations to be able to exhibit their art in and support them. I think the community itself is, the art community here in Columbus is pretty outstanding. But I think it's a very difficult community, like any community in the Midwest in particular. It's very, very difficult space to sell your product and make a great living. I didn't do it to make a living. I did it to see if I could ever paint. And I started when I was 75 years old. One of the only two things Grandma Moses and I have in common is that we both started in our mid to late 70s. And I didn't do it to sell pictures. I did it to just, number one, stay occupied and stay healthy. I have every underlying condition known to man for COVID-19. And so I wanted to stay pretty much quarantined all day. My wife and I would get up in the morning and head to the studio. I'd spend 5 or 6 hours trying to learn how to paint. I chose, I do abstract expressionism for a couple of reasons. It's without a doubt the most forgiving of the art forms. You can make mistakes and people think it's meant to be there. And I love that because I can't draw anything. So I can put paint where it should be, I think. And I think I understand balance and composition, texture, harmony, because for 57 years I've been pretty much devoted to collecting and studying art. It all began when I was 20 years old. I was visiting a friend of mine who was a student at CCAD. And he was a starving artist, of course. I was 20, he was probably 20. And this was in his apartment. And it was the 70s. We were in our 20s, and so you know what happens when you're 20 and in the 70s. We'd been drinking and talking, and I kept staring at this piece of sculpture. And finally I said to him, Ivan, I want to buy that. And he goes, well, really? I said, yeah, I really like it, and I'd like to buy it. He goes, $10. I said, thinking I would go, I'll give you $7. But I didn't. I said, I'll take it. He goes, really? I said, yeah. He says, I was just messing around one day. I said, I rather like it. I said, I like the texture. I said, I'd probably never buy this sculpture again today. However, I wouldn't part with it for anything because it basically was the beginning of an addiction. We literally have hundreds upon hundreds of pieces of local art in our collection. We have storage areas that would probably fill this room of local artist paintings. Over 90% of what I've collected over the years are local people. Um, Not all contemporary people. I've collected Emerson Burkhart, Alice Shilley, Edmund Keane, who are, just to mention a few, really terrific artists. But this was what started it. It sits beside my computer or in a library. It's been there for 57 years. It's one of the few things that have gone through a multitude of moves, divorce, and all kinds of other things. It's still there, and I look at it fondly and almost every day. This is the very first picture I painted 2 years ago, and I struggled. I really struggled with it, but I was just having such a great time. And during COVID and the way we were closed for 11 weeks at one time, it seems like the studio itself is a haven, a retreat, a place to just get away from everything bad that might be out there. And it will be reworked, but it was the very first piece. And what I did was we removed a lot of pictures from a building we owned. I started taking pictures I wasn't enamored with, and I started painting over them, just doing whatever I needed to do. Both of these were from that group. You can tell if it was from that group if it has a frame around it. Most everything I paint doesn't have a frame. Something we really, really like we'll take and have framed. But that's both of those came from that particular period. This is half of a diptych that I did that, along with its partner, is in our bedroom. And this is a detail from it. There's something pretty common in just about all of my pictures. They're geometric shapes, layer upon layer upon layer, and I keep working with it. I keep working with it until I think it's worthy to hang in our home or one of our locations. There they are together. Another detail. I love squares, I love circles, I love lines. See, as you can tell, I can't draw a straight line, but you can get away with it with abstract expressionism. This is the maybe third picture that I did. It's 15 feet long and 6 feet high. It's 5 panels, side by side. I know what you call a diptych and a triptych, but I have no idea what you call 5 of them. A quintich or something?
Poly.
A what?
Polytriptych.
Polytriptych? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to get more out of today than just the $12,000 she's paying me, huh? But anyway, I don't know if yeah, here's a close-up of it. I mean, it defines multimedia, I think, pretty well. There's just about everything you can hang on a canvas or put on a canvas is on this particular piece. And if you see a lot of numbers here, I knew exactly where this piece was going to go. It's in our Polaris location in a fairly good-sized room, and the picture that preceded this was in that room, so it fit the wall perfectly. I generally know where every piece is going to hang in our locations when I start. But this was going to go into a location we had that had just won Salon of the Year in America, and so I wanted to put something that would remind people of our other locations. And so these numbers that you see signify location addresses, okay? And in addition, I mean, these are addresses. This is the year I started the company. This would be my son and daughter's numbers, the athletic numbers in high school and college. The year I was married to Deb. And you'll see this on almost every picture that I do. There's a 1 somewhere throughout the place. I love the number. I love what it symbolizes, and to me. And then I started putting some pieces of wood that I purchased at antique stores and was laying around, and just wanted to add some texture. Fabric. I used, to get some texture, I used putty. But, you know, I just used everything I could. I love this picture. And if there was a fire at the place, I'd grab it if I could. But, you know, it was just such a challenge. And I was so new at what I was doing, I thought, well, maybe there's hope. You know, maybe there's hope if you stay at it long enough. These are some details of it. You know, as I mentioned, I'm infatuated with the number 1 for some reason. It's everywhere. Some more detail of that particular piece. This is fabric or canvas that I painted and just kind of put on it to add a little texture to it. It's a monster. It's big. This is, I found that painting is much more enjoyable when you're with someone you love and shares the same interests that you have. And this is my favorite painting partner, who's absolutely gifted, but never talks about it or allows anyone to talk about art other than mine. And
should I invite her for conversations and coffee?
well, you know, yeah, you can. Actually, that piece behind, that's one of hers behind her. And she's very gifted. This is another piece that's in our bedroom. I think it's Debbie's favorite piece. Some other stuff. I'll be, you know, going through here, showing you different things I've just played with. It takes me forever to do something, one of these pictures, because I'm constantly trying to figure out what I'm doing. And it comes from not having any formal training other than YouTube, Udemy, and having collected for a long time. So these are a couple of diptychs. They're pretty large. They're about 8 feet by. They're probably 8 feet by 8 feet, and they're in our corporate headquarters in 2 different locations. This is a work in progress that is in our north location on High Street in the short north. Actually, it's where this picture came from. I went and picked this up yesterday, and I thought to myself, why'd you hang that? Because you need to work on that some more. So it's going to go from here to my studio instead of back to where it was. And this piece is 15 feet long. There's another piece across the room from it that's another 15 feet. But this was not quite, I mean, it was a long way off from finishing. This is my studio. This is a stairway. I'm very blessed. We have a building that Debbie is working on to renovate that is 18,000 square feet. And This is the lower level that we used to use for employee lounge, warehousing, and doing a lot of different things. I decided to hang some cool fixtures and maybe make it a kind of a little art studio in addition to painting in it. I've probably got at my disposal about 4,000 square feet of studio, and I have one room that I can spray paint in with an exhaust system that's just unbelievable. And I've got plenty of room to be able to do large pieces. And I have a staff that tries everything in their power to make life happy for me. I have people. Colleen put this slide presentation together today. I've got our property guys will make 20-foot canvases for me, and I go into drum rolls and trumpets and just start painting. So, but it's a great little room to if you're going to be quarantined or sequestered, my art studio is where you want to be. Is this a picture that you asked me about? This was in the location that you were talking about. You said, do you still have it there? This was in our Dublin location. I've got it hanging horizontally there and vertically there. It's been replaced by another piece that we moved to our corporate headquarters. These are other pieces that are in various locations. I love this one for some reason. That's along with that 15-footer. I really like this piece. I think it flows. I think it says some things that make sense. Speaking of making sense, I have a definition about abstract expressionism. I have several of them. A couple by Tolstoy, a couple, one by Jackson Pollock. I said it makes sense. Abstract expressionism really doesn't make sense. One thing in Webster said, there's an absence of reality. There's nothing real about this picture except the colors and the composition. The medium and the composition speaks for itself. If people ask you, what's it mean? Do you ever get that question? It should speak for itself. Now, what it says to each person is so different. And I don't know if that's even spoken to me yet, to be honest.
Well, let's take a moment and see if anyone has a response to that.
Okay.
Any thoughts on that?
No way, huh? Okay.
There's something about what is abstract, you enter into yourself. As we're gazing at this, each of us experiences something individually.
Yep.
And for me, it's beauty, it's composition. That kind of, it's a very contemplative.
Yeah, it should be self-defining and to each individual, I think.
Anybody else?
My interest is,
I can see from their eyes the things that
I'm primarily interested in boldness, brightness, color, composition, texture. And what I put on is the painting generally takes me where it wants me to go. So, you'll see reoccurring themes in just about all of my stuff. Do you have the same? Do you have the same? Do you do a lot of the same stuff?
Well, I think you find things that comfort you when you are painting.
Yeah.
And things that you think of a lot. And I'm sure, you do have the common theme of the lips, I noticed, and
Eyes.
like the arrows, the eyes, and there's something about the repetition that's comforting, I think.
Yeah, and I like to do what's easy, too. Yeah. And I use a lot. And I follow hundreds of artists on Instagram. And I know, I can tell who did what before I even look at the name, because I've seen the same strokes, the same composition, the same feeling in their work. They have a lot of crutches that they go back to all the time. And I do the same. Oh, this is the big one, and I think it's a video. My guys had just built this frame and stretched it. It needs to be straightened up. You know, I'm just moving on, because this is the 21-footer. And Deb and I were in Florida when quarantine hit, and she told me before we left, she said, you know, you've got 3 months to get pictures for our new Gahanna location, so you better start getting on it. And we were going to be gone for like 3 or 4 months. And so we would come home every once in a while. We probably came home 3 times, and I would work on this, you know, over a weekend. So 2 or 3 weekends it took me to do this. So, you know, and we talk about mixed media again. I mean, I'll use crayon or pencil. I'll throw paint on the thing. You know, I mean, I'll do anything to get the color where I want it to go, or the feeling I want to get it to go. This piece is here in our Gahanna location. This is a color bar where our clients sit to process with hair color on them. And I wanted it to be very colorful and make them think even more about the colors that they were using. I had a great compliment about this piece. Shortly after we opened, I got a text from a friend of mine, acquaintance of mine, that I didn't realize was a client. And he may be the preeminent architect for residential homes in Ohio. And he was a client and was in the place, and he sent me a text, and he said, I absolutely love this piece. He said, I paint as well. I don't know if you knew that, but he said, I paint as well, and he said, I just really love this piece. I like it a lot too, and it meets with fairly good reviews. You know, something this reminds me of is another thing about abstract expressionism, there really are no rules. The only rule that I would abide by that has to do with art would be the rule of thirds. And when I do a canvas, I try to make sure that the upper third, the middle third, the bottom third, I work on them and I try to make them flow together somehow. And I'll stay with the same palette or the same design I want to put throughout, but that's the only rule, if you will.
I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking they are so balanced. So
Well,
there's an
thank you.
intentionality
Well-
on your part.
Well, when you can't draw, you have to count on balance. And thanks for noticing that. But
Oh, yeah.
you know, I feel good that they do seem to be balanced. There's my other artist that I share the studio with, and I tell you, I can't tell you what art has done for me psychologically during that 2-year, 3-year COVID thing. It's just, when I get in this space, it's like nothing else matters, and it's been a blessing for me. I love her work, incidentally, in case you didn't. This is as you see that we're renovating, but I've hung pictures. This is our corporate headquarters. I didn't make this. but I designed it about 35 years ago and had I commissioned someone to do it. Originally, I wanted to do it with these antique pieces that I had to gears, antique gears, wooden gears, very heavy things. And it was impossible to do that. This is made by an artist. This is all bulletproof glass that's been fauxed to look. He was one of the local artists that I had been supporting. And he built this. There are 3 of them in the world. One is in the Atlanta airport, the International Concourse, and then we have this one and another one, which has always been a very favorite piece of mine. But anyway, we're renovating. As you can see, it's kind of a shambles on the floors and stuff, but the walls were painted white, and I figured you can't have a big wall without a picture on it. So I started hanging our pictures there. This is a triptych that was just being hung, and it's a pretty nice picture there it is together. And as you notice, the eyes are there, the ones are there. They sneak in. They always sneak in. When in doubt, put a 1 there or a circle, you know? That's a detail. This is a detail of it.
I'm fascinated to see if you don't draw at all?
No.
How do you keep from getting lost? Because, they all look placed.
Yeah. I
So-
get lost a lot. I really get lost. And when you're lost, add a layer and keep moving on until, I mean, there are layers after layers after layers here. And I sent this picture I sent this to a friend of mine who lives in Florida. We grew up together. We were roommates at one time. I mean, we have been friends since high school. And he asked me for something for his new home. And so I sent him a picture, and then he follows my Instagram page. And he saw some details of this, and I think this might have got him going, this particular detail, because he said to me, Chuck, what's going on in your mind? I said, why? He goes, man, he said, have you considered talking to some professional? And I said, nah, I think I'm okay. I said, I just, it's a space filler, John. But anyway, it's...
In the brain, there's this wonderful
the what?
endorphins in the brain.
Yeah. You know what? It does throw the endorphins out there. And you know what I like as well? Color. There's no rule about color. You can put any color, any 2-3 colors together that you wouldn't normally think work, and it manages to do it with abstract expressionism. That's one of the 3. That's this was. I think I showed this earlier. There's some details. There are a lot of these to see, and this is in my daughter's office. She loves orange, so this will probably end up in her house as well. This particular piece.
You mentioned you spent hours in classes online.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, the internet is just so unbelievable as far as if there's anything you want to know, you go to the internet. And I've been influenced by so many living artists today that are out there on the internet. And there's something almost every one of them can teach you. And I just sit for hours and watch. I mean, sometimes we'll be, television is so horrible these days. Deb and I will put on YouTube and watch, a demo on abstract art. I don't sell anything that I've done. And the piece on the right, a young lady that goes way back and dated my son in high school, kept mentioning to Deb on Facebook that she would love to buy one of Mr. Penzone's pictures. So I did this and sent it to her. The blue here is actually tape that when it comes off, it's in, you have white around it, and then I had it framed for her. I just don't feel comfortable selling anything. And
So what you're saying is you actually gave that to her.
yeah, I gave that to her, and I mean I've given a bunch of stuff away to people that wanted to buy something, and I gave it to them. I multitask. I'll do. Well, in this case, there are 6 of them, because we had 6 pedicure chairs at our new location, and I wanted to put something behind them, and so I put these together, and I just started banging them out, along with that very long 21-foot piece. I was doing this between trips back and forth from Florida. And I love these pieces. I think they just really are very, very nice, and they look terrific in the room they're in. This is. I get people ask me a lot. How do you start? What do you do when you begin a painting? This is close to what I do. I just start smearing paint all over the place. That's the finished product, and that's where it began. You rarely see the base that I put on. I'll put gesso on it, then I'll put a bunch of other paint through it. I'll make marks and just do whatever I need to do to get a feeling for what I'm doing. I try to get as loose as I can, because I think my work, I think my work could be much looser than it is. I think it looks somewhat contained, and I would like it to feel freer and looser. And I'll get there someday.
What do you think is going to bring you to that?
What
What do you think is going to bring you to that?
I think I need to become more confident in what I'm doing. And I'm wound pretty tight to begin with, so it may take a while to get loose. This is another triptych I did. These pieces are 4x4, and so we've got 16 feet here. I have this great. I mean, we have unbelievably large locations with great walls to hang things on, and I don't think anything goes better on a great wall better than an abstract expression picture. You're just, they're bold. They catch your eye. They're colorful, and I think they make a big difference in a room.
But you do hang a lot of local artists as well, not just your own
Oh yeah,
stuff, which is kind of nice.
hang,
like Larry Hamill,
we hang
I think
local artists.
Larry
yeah.
Hamill is one that we have some really big pictures of.
Yeah.
That he's done, and a lot of different artists that are kind of cool
Yeah.
to kind of spotlight here locally. Yeah.
I would imagine when we're finished with the building Deb's working on right now, we'll have 18,000 feet. There'll be a lot of my work in there, and hopefully some of hers. But I would really like to showcase local people and have their work being seen by those 300,000 visitors we have a year. It's a few of the. When I mentioned how I began a picture, this will be the next piece I do, right here. And I've got it sitting next to whatever paintings I'm working on, and what I have left over. I'll go in and I'll just splatter some paint on it. I'll take some charcoal and move it around. I was giving a friend of mine and his daughter, both of them artists, the daughter's my goddaughter, a tour of the place, my studio, and he said to me, "How do you begin?" And I had a blank canvas. This is 6 feet high, 4 feet across. It was blank. And he said, how do you begin? And I grabbed a piece of charcoal, and I said, this is how most of them start. And I did this. And he goes, that's it? I said, yeah. And I really liked the way this flowed and moved. And this was all white, but then it ended up like this. So that's extremely simplistic for me. I don't normally do anything that's...
Picasso-like.
Kind of, yeah. This is, you may have seen this at the beginning. It was two on top of two. Now I turned it into a triptych and moved the fourth piece into another area.
Well, let's take a moment and see if anyone has any comments, any thoughts.
I have a question.
Yeah, Ozzy?
I didn't hear the beginning, and you might already have said this, but when you were growing up, did you draw in school?
No,
Or
no, I did not. My family, my parents were not into taking us to the art museum or being involved in art. The only thing I ever did when I was a senior in high school at Grandview Heights, there was a contest to design a victory flag, which was to be hung whenever we won a football, baseball, basketball game or something. And I won, I think, $7 for designing a really cool flag. And I have to tell you, in 2008, I was asked to do the commencement speech at that high school I graduated from, 45 years from the day I had walked across that stage. Have any of you had the good fortune to be asked to do something like that? Unbelievable. It's an amazing, and 2 days later, we were in Beverly Hills where I received an industry award for Global Entrepreneur of the Year, okay? And I want to tell you, I was so nervous about this commencement speech. It was unbelievable. But anyway, I graduated 45 years earlier, and the principal wanted to have lunch with me like a week before, and he was asking me about high school and stuff, and he said, bring up some things that, tell me about your high school. And I told him, I wrestled, I did this, I dated the most beautiful women, and I said, and I designed a flag that was pretty cool. And he said, describe it to me. And we were at Spagio restaurant, and I kind of sketched it out, which was horrible. And he goes, I think I have that. I said, there's no way. I said, it's probably been 45 years since Grandview's won anything. And he goes, no, I think I do. So the day I did the commencement speech, I got there early and walked in, and there hanging in the auditorium was my victory flag. And that's the only bit of art I ever did in my entire life. And it was good to see that they still have it. So these are some things that are in the locations, and this is extremely small for me. I did this in Florida because there wasn't any space to do anything big. I just kind of started doing some smaller stuff when we were there. These two are different somewhat, but it's hard to tell. I happen to love this piece. I think this is one of Deb's favorite pieces. That's in our. These are both, I think, in Gahanna somewhere. These are in our corporate headquarters. These would be little things, that I was that were existing in our collection that I wasn't enamored with. So I brought them and I painted over them.
When you paint over them, do you make them white first?
I generally do, yeah. I think I have one of these, yeah. This one is right here. It's got a frame around it, so it came from the collection that we had, and that's its brother next to it. I did them both at the same time. This is a picture that someone I paint a lot with didn't like, and so I went over. I just painted over Debbie's picture that she hated, couldn't, she was having a battle every day with this particular piece and just was frustrated as heck. I said, let me have it, I'll do it. So I did a Jackson Pollock on it and threw a couple circles on it. And this another piece, this is in my daughter's living room. It was a very early piece. I showed you the first piece I did, right? Remember I said, this is the very first piece I did. This is the very last piece I did, this particular piece here. And it's in our corporate headquarters. It's an interesting stairway up to the second floor with the pictures, I think. And that's it pretty much for the slideshow. These pictures, you know, why I picked these pictures was I don't do very many pieces that are very small. And this is the average size that I normally do. I kind of wanted to show a variation of different figures and geometric shapes that I use. India ink, you know, I get back and throw some India ink. And, you know, I'll use any cheater I can use to get a shape or a form that I would like. And this I brought primarily to just show that's true. I'll use fabric, just anything I can find at a hardware store to add texture or interest. And
That gives such more of a dimension than
Yeah.
it's like looking into.
It gives a texture, dimension, and you know, and as I mentioned, it was in one of our locations, and as I was taking it down and putting it in the SUV, I thought, well, this is going back to the studio because I need to rework it, and there's not a 1 on it either. I got to put a 1 on it, you know. This picture, you know, again, it shows you know, some texture that, I mean, I threw some blue paint on there to just add. It was a very thick acrylic paint, and I put it in. I dabbed it on, got some texture. I was going to use a different color, but I had nothing blue in the palette at the time, and I thought, well, I like it, so I'm going to keep it. And that's pretty much it.
What's your thought process when you're painting? Like, take, for example, that picture up there, the one behind your shoulder.
Here?
Well, it doesn't matter, either one. Okay, and you've painted those lips that are up there in the right. Do you think to yourself, well, now let's think I'll put a square underneath that?
Yeah,
Or
I mean, that's
what
pretty
should
much-
I put to the left of that? How does your mind work?
Yeah, you know, I'll do it, and I'll step back, and I'll grab, you know, I'll grab a paint or I'll spray paint. I'll do anything to add texture and color and whatever, and I'll just start doing it, and then I'll revisit it a couple days later after it's really dried well, and acrylic's dry in about an hour and a half, but I'll wait a couple of days and come back to it and play with it. But I have no process. I basically, but my life has been that way. I've been thinking about this particular presentation 4 months now, maybe 4 months, daily. And I'm going to write an outline. I'd never do. I was contacted by a local business magazine about 20 years ago, and they said they wanted to do a story on business plans, and I said, what? And he said, well, yeah, we called PricewaterhouseCoopers, who was our outside accounting firm at the time. He said, we called them and asked them if they could recommend some people we should talk to. And they gave us several names. And then the guy said, you might want to talk to Charles Penzone because he's done quite well for 20-some years without a business plan. They put me on the cover. What?
And I think why that is you try to be in
Right,
and
yeah.
in the moment, and then without judgment. So try to kind of feel it and go with it and not judge it, and then just kind of let that creativity move through you and onto the canvas. And then I think that's where you find that inspiration, where you don't have that judgment of it, and you're really just letting that creativity move through you from a higher source and just get out there.
Yeah.
And you're so accepting of it because of that release that you get. But you just know that, you know, your intuition is there, like this is, you know when to stop because you just kind of feel it. And you kind of go with that without judgment, which I think
Right,
is a
and you know,
beautiful
there's no
gift.
judgment, and you know that it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, if I were a portraitist, that would be a different thing. But I can pretty much make mistakes without much. And, you know, and of course you don't try to, but, you know, if it's not a straight line, it's not a straight line. And I rather enjoy that. I rather enjoy that. And
Do you remember in creating your business, the risk that you took and even going toward it? Or did it always feel like a confident feeling?
I was always pretty confident in what I was doing. I really thought I had a great feel for what the consumer wanted, what the customer wanted. I never did anything for the money. I only wanted to do something that would just be a great experience. Like these, I don't do these for the money. I do these, hopefully people will enjoy them. I'm not embarrassed by anything I do. I'll hang, if I hang them in our house or in one of our locations, I'm not embarrassed by it. And so many people tell me they love walking in and seeing what we've hung recently. So, you know, it's good. And I approached my business the same way. And I think Deb now she's been doing it the same way too. It's what the customer is going to probably enjoy. I don't approach this thinking, are they going to like this? Because really what matters is if the artist likes it. And I feel uncomfortable using that word relative to me, artist. I mean, no one has ever introduced me as Charles Penzone, the artist. And I'm not going to hang in the Louvre or the d'Orsay Museum, I'm sure. However, I love what I'm doing. And my takeaway for anyone here is, you know, I waited 75 years to pick up a paintbrush and really enjoy something. I can't tell you what the last 2.5 years have been like. I just thoroughly enjoy it. Don't wait 75 years. I mean, get it. Just do it. If there's something out there that you want to do, just figure it out and do it and enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed this. So I've enjoyed being here with you today. Thank you for coming. Yes.
So on the painting that you have there, that's 4 different paintings.
Yeah, they're 4
Did
by
you
4.
do them
Each is
all
4
at
by
the
4.
same time,
Yeah. I do.
laid out like that?
No.
Okay.
No, I lay them out. I have a lot of room for big tables and stuff, and I'll start that way. I have a wall of, I can put 6 big pictures on, and if I want to go side by side that way. I like a table, and the reason I don't draw well is, I mean, I'm 77 now, and I don't have the steady hand of a 27-year-old. And so I have something, that's firm, and I can, do a crooked line better than I can a crooked line if it's vertical. But I always do 3 or 4 canvases side by side with the idea I'm going to do a triptych, 3 pieces together, or 3 pieces individually that'll stand on their own. But I like to multitask. Now, I sound like I'm a machine and can really move around. There's more thought that goes into these than it may look. I take a lot of time, except for that big one. You know that 21-footer? I just knocked that out in no time, and I think that's why it's received such, good things about it. It was between trips back and forth to Florida, and Deb saying, "You better get these pictures done. We've got to open up on us." And so I was just cranking it, and I think when I talked about I'd like to be freer, I was so free with that thing. I mean, I was just hurrying. I had people with torches behind me. And, and then I did, those ones I said I hung over the manicure or pedicure chairs. I did all of them together. There were 6 of them. I just started banging them out and making sure that they would look okay in the same room.
Yeah, so you definitely have the same palette, but then do you know what direction you're going to have everything?
Once I start, the palette, the painting tells me what palette's going to be. And you know how I said I don't do any type of business plan or outline? I watch these people on Instagram and YouTube, and they start, and their table that's by their canvas is so pristine and so clean. I don't do any of that. I mean, I just grab, my studio is as big as this. If you can't, I've got 2 big rooms together that would be this size. And I have to go look for what I want to use because I don't have it nearby. I don't get things organized at all. And thank God for Colleen. I mean, I would be the most unorganized person on earth. But I do many pictures, or 3 or 4 pictures at the same time. And it's been working. It's kind of been working.
And then afterwards, do you decide how they go together?
Oh, no. I do them with a plan. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think this isn't what I would want it to be if I was to do it all over again. When I do one of these, generally, this blue would extend over to here. This would not be much that you would look at. But you wouldn't notice the division. I would make sure that this area in particular was really flowing together. So you would try to ignore the creases. But this really probably wasn't even, we may have hung it wrong when we I'm serious. I mean, I have a guy named Chris. I said, "Chris, hang that picture over there." And Chris may have gotten things a little whopper-jawed. And then I think it flows better in our location that we have because we hung them vertically. I used 3 instead of 4, and then I put a 4th one in a different room and stuff. But anyway,
Wonderful.
thank you,
Charles
guys.
Penzone, has he not given us a marvelous entree to the beauty of fall with color and creativity?
Well, I brought some fall colors today.
You did. Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you all very much.